It's a war of attrition now. It's a real grinding war. Russia's taking heavy losses, and the battlefield in eastern and southern Ukraine has seen some changes this summer, but very slowly, right? Russia's not advancing like it did in the first days of the war, when it swept in and took bigger cities and went for hundreds of kilometers from the border of Crimea through southern Ukraine. Now it's inch by inch, meter by meter.
How far from the front lines is it possible to live as a civilian on either side, given that nature?
Well, it is determined by the length of the fiber optic cables that are attached to many of the drones that are being used now, or the ranges of the FPV drones that are being used, right? So the Russians have drones that can fly 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers. I've heard that they're experimenting with some that might be able to fly upwards of 50 kilometers. Now, that's much larger than just a frontline area. That is the width of numerous cities. It could be the length of a road that spans two major cities in eastern Ukraine. So I'll give you two examples. Right now, there are two cities that Russia has in its sights. One is called Pokrovsk, and the other is called Konstantinovka. And both are in Donetsk Oblast in eastern Ukraine.
Which they have illegally annexed, but they don't occupy.
Correct. Yes. Putin claims these areas and their all the way to their administrative borders to be Russian territory, even though they don't control them completely. And they want these cities very badly. Trying to take them is difficult because these are urban environments. Urban warfare is slow and plodding and grinding and bloody. And so what they're using in conjunction with these drones are large aerial bombs that are equipped with wings that can fly in and destroy giant city blocks. So that's making life hell for the people who live in these cities, which used to be populated, each tens of thousands, 60,000 to 100,000 people. Now there's a few thousand, or in some cases a few hundred people
living in these
cities, and it's hell for them, because if they are to leave, there is this constant buzzing of drones. The prevalence of drones is everywhere. So that's what life is like for the Ukrainians on the front line, and also why we've seen this mass exodus from eastern Ukraine to the rest of the country, and this flood of internally displaced people, and also more broadly, the millions of refugees that now have arrived in Europe and even the U.S.
Much of the reporting that we are seeing on the war in Ukraine is about longer range missiles, artillery bombs, and the rest that are being used against Kyiv, against Lviv, against major cities across Ukraine, where civilians are targeted, as well as critical infrastructure, and are getting killed. What's day-to-day life like? How is it different when you are spending a lot of your time in still what one would call an active war zone, right?
I have an apartment in the capital, in central Kyiv, and along with the other 4 million residents of that European country, or European capital, I go to bed every night anticipating there to be another air attack. They've become much more frequent this year in 2025. We've seen Russia launch not only in greater frequency, but also in greater scale, these attacks using Iranian supplied and designed drones, attack drones, numerous types of missiles, including ballistic missiles, that are only capable, that are only really, the Ukrainians are really only able to shoot them down using the American supplied Patriot weapon systems. And so we go to bed, anticipating these attacks. And, like clockwork, usually between, 10 p.m. and midnight, there'll be an air raid siren. Everyone in the city has, their own kind of personal plan. My friends who have children, they run across the street to a bomb shelter, to the metro systems, which were designed after World War II to be bomb shelters.
Atomic, yeah.
And so,
strikes, yeah.
Myself and many others, we don't have bomb shelters in our buildings, so we sort of curl up in our bathrooms. And everyone who doesn't have a bomb shelter has learned to live by this rule of two walls, which is try to, if you can, place yourself behind at least two walls. One to take the initial impact, the second to take the shrapnel and debris from that, so you won't be badly injured. And then, of course, inevitably, these attacks happen, and you can hear the buzzing and whirring of these attack drones. Huge reverberating explosions from the missiles, and then we don't sleep much, and we get up in the morning and we look outside and we see the destruction wrought by these aerial attacks. That might mean 20 people killed on one day. It can mean 40 people injured the next. And then, of course, there are the attacks on energy infrastructure and other critical infrastructure. Right now, that's a big focal point on the Ukrainian side as we head into the autumn and winter seasons. So it's from the front lines to Kyiv, all the way, as you mentioned, to Lviv in western Ukraine, near the borders of the EU and NATO. It's a war zone.